The air conditioning in the Oak Ridge Estates Community Center was locked at a crisp 68 degrees. The same temperature Karen Whitaker swore kept everyone sharp and respectful. She believed cold air made rule breakers uncomfortable, just like her pastel cardigans and pearl earrings made her look like the sweetest grandma on the block. I sat in the ergonomic chair at the far end of the long mahogany table, spine straight, hands folded, refusing to shiver even though my silk blouse offered zero protection. 15 board members stared at me, Karen at the head like a queen on her plastic throne, flanked by her loyal sons, Bob the vice president who treated every lawn measurement like gospel, and Derek the treasurer who worshipped spreadsheets the way others worship God. Karen, click her remote. The projector lit up with a bar graph titled Community Standards Compliance Index. Growth isn't optional, neighbors, she announced in that syrupy voice that could curdle milk. With the new pool renovation and street repaving loans, we're talking 20% higher property values by next quarter. Oak Ridge Estates isn't some sleepy cul-de-sac anymore. We're entering the national conversation on premium living. She paused for the obligatory nods. Everyone murmured approval, except me. I simply watched the condensation bead on the untouched water pitcher. But growth requires efficiency, Karen continued, tone shifting to somber concern. Efficiency means trimming the fat. Derek stood up, adjusting his rimless glasses. We've audited every resident based on 3 metrics: active volunteer hours, verifiable extra fee contributions over $500 annually, and personal compliance score above 98%. The slide changed. Green checks next to every name, except mine. My photo appeared. It wasn't a flattering headshot. It was a cropped image from last summer's block party where I'd been laughing with a red Solo cup. Underneath, Ava Sinclair. Current status: unverified extra contributions. Compliance rating: negative. Derek's voice dripped surgical pity. Ava has spent 8 years pursuing personal interests. Travel, freelance writing, questioning our guidelines. While we appreciate individuality, the Oak Ridge Trust was designed to reward those who build community standards, not siphon from them. The room went funeral silent. They weren't angry. They were disappointed, the kind of disappointment reserved for the neighbor whose grass hit 2.6 inches instead of 2.5. Karen leaned forward, clasping her hands. Ava, we love having you here. This isn't exclusion. This is motivation. We've enabled your little rebellions too long. Parking that sedan instead of an SUV, refusing the approved mailbox color, challenging our flamingo ban. It's not healthy for you, and certainly not healthy for property values. She smiled that practice smile. The proposal is to revoke your full membership privileges and voting rights effective immediately. Freeze your access to community amenities, remove you from the beneficiary list, and terminate any special considerations. We're doing this to push you to stand on your own 2 feet and protect the legacy for those actually carrying it. I kept my face perfectly still. I knew exactly where this was going. They'd built a filter to catch only me, the one resident who quietly paid the HOA's secret emergency loan 5 years ago when the pool cracked and insurance denied the claim. My clean credit had saved their perfect neighborhood. They'd forgotten the paperwork existed, just like they forgot I existed beyond my negative contribution. Karen asked for discussion. Bob jumped in. We need clean books for the bank underwriters. A non-compliant resident looks terrible on the credit rating. Derek added, nothing personal, Ava. The loan's sympathetic board member, my neighbor Lisa, who once borrowed my hedge trimmer, lifted a trembling hand after glancing at Karen. 15 hands rose in unison. Motion carried. The guillotine fell with the scratch of a secretary's pen. Karen began gathering her papers, signaling the meeting was over. I didn't move. I let the reality crystallize for 3 full seconds. They thought they'd just cut off a leech. They thought they'd saved a few thousand in waived fees. They thought they were teaching the neighborhood a lesson. I stood. The chair scraped loud enough to freeze everyone. Karen narrowed her eyes, waiting for tears. I smoothed my trousers, picked up my phone, and placed it in my bag with deliberate calm. I looked at the slide, still glowing with my negative rating. Then I studied the 15 faces, arrogance mixed with relief. "So," I said, voice steady and projecting to the back wall, "just to be perfectly clear on the administrative details, by end of business today at 5 p.m., my membership access, email portal, and any linked financial systems will be fully revoked. Is that correct?" Derek frowned. Confused, I was discussing logistics instead of begging. "Yes, standard procedure." "Why?" I smiled the smallest smile. "I just wanted to ensure the timeline was precise." I locked eyes with Karen for one heartbeat. I saw the flicker of doubt. She was looking for the broken resident. She found someone else. "Goodbye, Karen," I said, not President Whitaker. I turned and walked out. My heels clicked like a metronome down the tiled hallway. Click, click, click. I didn't slam the glass door. I let it hiss shut behind me. As I stepped into the bright Denver suburb sunlight, I knew what was happening back in that room. The relief was already curdling into unease. These predators had just realized the prey hadn't cried. The prey had simply checked the clock. It was 2 p.m. They had given me 3 hours. They thought they were cutting me loose. They had no idea I was the only thing keeping their precious glass tower of rules from collapsing. By sunset, they would learn the burden they voted to remove was actually the load-bearing wall of their entire empire. The concrete parking lot outside the community center amplified every footstep into a ticking clock. I reached my modest sedan, the one Karen had once sneered at during inspections, and the moment the door clicked shut, my phone rang. Caller ID, Summit Community Bank, Priority Desk. I answered on speaker, reversing out of the spot. "This is Ava, MS. Sinclair, David Thorne here from Corporate Lending." His voice vibrated with banker panic. "We just received a wire request from Derek, your treasurer. He's trying to draw the entire revolving credit line. $40 million for the pool and road upgrades. Marked urgent. Paperwork is aggressive. Wants funds by close of business." I merged onto the quiet tree-lined street. "And you're calling me because?" Technically, Derek has signing authority, but the risk algorithm flagged it instantly. The primary collateral isn't the HOA's real estate. Those are already leveraged for the Tampa-style expansion dreams. The collateral for this liquidity line is your personal guarantee backed by the secondary securities portfolio you set up 5 years ago. I stopped at the red light. A jogger passed, oblivious. "Go on." The file lists you as guarantor of last resort. If Derek pulls this money and Oak Ridge defaults on any covenant, the bank comes after you personally. I smiled at the dashboard. They've forgotten. 5 years ago, during their liquidity crunch they'd hushed up, they'd used my pristine credit to secure the emergency lifeline. Documents treated like tissues, used once, discarded. "David," I said, voice dropping to absolute calm, "do not approve the wire yet. Stall. Tell them compliance flag, Patriot Act, routing error, whatever. Buy me time. And email me the full unredacted loan agreement right now." He hesitated. "You have the right to freeze the facility." "I know my rights. Just send the email." I hung up. Freezing now would be a warning shot. I wasn't interested in warnings. I wanted structural failure. The phone rang again. Northwell Bridge Partners, my secret private equity firm hidden behind blind trusts and my grandmother's maiden name. "Talk to me," I answered. "Boss, we have a situation," Marcus said. Derek's assistant is screaming. "Oak Ridge is demanding we fast-track $15 million mezzanine financing for the street project. Unsecured, 6%. Derek pulled the you-know-who-we-are card, said the Whitaker family has been pillars for 50 years. I laughed, dry and humorless. Market rate for a distressed HOA is 12%. Draft the rejection. Use over-leveraged and insufficient collateral. Make it sound robotic. Kill the deal. Marcus warned they'd flip out. They've already committed to contractors. Sounds like a mismanagement problem, I replied, pulling into my garage. Not my investment opportunity. Inside my modest Unit 4B, laminate floors Karen once wrinkled her nose at, I headed straight to the second bedroom. No bed. Biometric scanner. The closet door opened to my hidden server room. 3 curved monitors glowed blue. Bloomberg terminal. I cracked my knuckles. My Stonegate, wait, Oak Ridge, internal server access was still live. They'd said end of business day. It was 2:45. I pulled up the loan docs David sent. Worse than I thought. Karen and Derek had restructured debt 6 months ago, loosening defaults, but tightening my cross-collateralization. They bet everything on low rates and endless fees. I logged into Northwell. I own minority stakes in 3 major vendors: the landscaping company, concrete supplier, and the pool maintenance firm Oak Ridge used. Enough to ask uncomfortable questions. Grandma's voice echoed in my head. Never show strength. Keep it buried. When you need it, don't hesitate. The clock read 3 o'clock. 90 minutes left. I downloaded every email chain, every board minute, every fake invoice where Karen had funneled HOA fees into her cousin's consulting company. I archived evidence of the Theta Holdings subsidiary, where they hid toxic debt and inflated land values for the new park. HR email pinged. Membership termination pending. Effective 5 p.m., they were efficient at cutting people out. I typed the command that would notify credit agencies of the guarantor status change. The moment my access was revoked, I became an outside party with zero obligation to guarantee $40 million in debt. I paused, finger over enter. This was the first domino. Lauren, no, Lisa, would be collateral damage. But I remembered her trembling hand at the vote. She'd chosen to save herself. I pressed enter. Notification sent. My phone buzzed. Text from my mother figure neighbor Diane. We're all meeting at the club at 7 to celebrate the new direction. Karen thinks it would be mature if you joined. Please don't make this harder. Celebrate. They were going to toast cutting the dead weight. I didn't reply. Instead, I created a folder named The Burden and started dragging files. The load-bearing wall was shifting. The glass tower of HOA perfection was already groaning. By 3:30, the apartment hummed, with cooling fans and market data tickers. I spread the 3 major projects across my screens. The pool renovation, $65 million, street repaving, $28 million, and the luxury park development, $120 million. Total short-term capital need, over $100 million. Liquid cash on hand, under $12 million. They were flying a jumbo jet on lawnmower fuel. I emailed my shark lawyer Marian Santos. Protocol 0 activated. As of 5 o'clock, I am no longer an Oak Ridge beneficiary. Initiate asset separation. Do not take calls from Karen or Derek. Draft capital restructuring demand. At 3:45, the first tremor, bank portal alert. Derek's $40 million wire, suspended. Reason, pending guarantor review. I could picture Derek refreshing his screen, sweating through his golf shirt. I moved to the street project. Oak Ridge needed board approval today for the buyout. Unknown to them, a silent partner, Blue Spruce Ventures me, held veto shares. I logged into the virtual meeting and clicked reject, unverified source of funds and acquire solvency concerns. Deal dead. Derek would get the call in 5 minutes. Next, the park. Through Northwell, I sat on risk committees of 2 concrete and steel suppliers. I fired off urgent memos. Market chatter suggests Oak Ridge liquidity crunch. Recommend immediate shift to cash on delivery until audited financials. In construction, cash on delivery is a death sentence. Cranes stop. Workers go home. 10 minutes later, the steel supplier emailed Oak Ridge procurement. Effective immediately. Certified funds required prior to offloading. Dominoes accelerating. Rumors leaked into trader forums. Hearing Oak Ridge having trouble closing pool financing. Short interest building. Bond prices for their community notes dropped from 98 to 92 cents. At 4:45, my phone stayed silent. They were too busy firefighting to call the woman they just expelled. I cleaned my tracks, deleted logs, ensured the IT audit would find nothing but a ghost. At exactly 5 o'clock, the center screen flashed. User access revoked. Session terminated. My Oak Ridge portal went dark. A moment later, the official email arrived. Membership amendment filed. Ava Sinclair removed from beneficiary schedule. I was out on paper. Free. And they were alone. 3 minutes later, my phone rang. Karen Whitaker. I let it ring 3 times, savoring the silence. On the 4th, I answered. Ava, she said. Her voice had lost its syrup. The steal was gone. The bank just called Derek. They froze the revolving line. Issue with the guarantor. I know. Silence. I could hear her breathing, gears turning, trying to reconcile the compliant neighbor she'd just evicted with the woman now speaking. Ava, what did you do? I didn't do anything, Karen. You did. You voted to cut ties. The bank is simply reacting to the new reality you created. We need to fix this. The pool deal, the wire has to go out by morning. If we don't, earnest money is gone. Reputation gone. Sounds like a difficult problem, but it's an HOA problem. And as of 5 o'clock, I am no longer part of the HOA. Stop it, she snapped, old arrogance flashing. You're still our neighbor. Come down here. Sign an extension on the guarantee. No. What do you mean no? I mean no. I'm not coming down. I'm not signing anything. You wanted to remove the burden. You succeeded. The burden is gone. Her voice cracked. Ava, listen. No, you listen. My tone stayed low but final. You held a vote. You raised your hand. You made a choice. Now live with the economics of that choice. She whispered, we need to talk. We could talk on Monday. Call my lawyer. Marianne Santos. Monday is too late. By Monday, the suppliers will walk. Then, I suggest you have a very productive weekend. I ended the call and powered the phone off. The silence in my apartment was absolute. The silence of a conductor who had raised the baton and left the orchestra holding its breath. They had 48 hours to bleed. Saturday morning, my phone danced across the coffee table. I ignored the first dozen calls, sipping coffee, reading Asian market reports. Finally, I answered. Karen again. You're hurting people, Ava. There are 1,200 families here. Receptionists, maintenance crews, people with mortgages. If credit lines freeze, payroll bounces next week. Do you want that on your conscience? I set my mug down. That's an interesting narrative, Karen. But let's be clear who's endangering them. You're the president who leveraged the HOA to the hilt for vanity projects. You're the one who spent cash reserves on consulting fees to your cousin instead of retaining earnings. I'm not pushing him off the cliff. I'm refusing to pay for the gas you're using to drive the bus over the edge. You're heartless. I'm prudent. And if you truly cared about payroll, you wouldn't have betted on speculative loans. I hung up. Next call from Derek, the nice guy, mask slipping. Then Bob, threatening lawsuits. I countered every threat with contract clauses they'd never read. At 2:30, the emotional artillery arrived. Diane, Karen's closest ally, showed up at my door in oversized sunglasses, trench coat, designer bag. She stepped inside, wrinkled her nose at my laminate floors. Ava, why are you doing this? Karen is a wreck. She didn't sleep. She says you're holding the community hostage. I'm simply leaving. Isn't that what you all voted for? We voted to help you. We wanted you to find your own path. We didn't think you'd retaliate. She paced, then pushed open the second bedroom door. She froze at the sight of the 3 monitors, Bloomberg terminal, whiteboard covered in probability calculations, and the Oak Ridge supply chain web. Files labeled Northwell Bridge Partners. What is this? She whispered. This is my path, I said, leaning in the doorway. You said you wanted me to find one. I found it 8 years ago. Diane sank into my ergonomic chair, suddenly small. If you have all this, why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you help? I did help. I backed your loans. I smoothed liquidity crunches. Quietly. Because I knew if I told you, Karen would try to control it. Take credit. I wasn't willing to let her. Tears streamed down her face. Please, Ava. Put the guarantee back. They're going to lose everything. The reputation. The legacy. It's your legacy, too. I stood in front of her. Answer honestly. Are you here because you miss your neighbor? Or because you need access to my balance sheet? The silence was devastating. She looked away. I thought so. I held the door open. You should go. I have work to do. Before she left, I added, tell Karen and the board the rules have changed. No more emotional calls, no more block party guilt trips. From now on, my relationship with Oak Ridge is strictly business. Everything in writing. Everything auditable. She whispered, you're treating us like strangers. No, I said, I'm treating you like counterparties. Sunday night bled into Monday. I hadn't slept. At 2 a.m., an encrypted email arrived from accountant RW, Rebecca, the quiet board accountant who'd once corrected Karen's math in a meeting and noticed my spark of recognition. Check the Theta subsidiary. Attached, a draft balance sheet. I dug. Theta Holdings was the dumping ground for toxic debt. Failed projects, bad loans, lawsuits. Moved off the main books to make Oak Ridge look profitable. Caleb, no, Derek, had been cooking numbers for 2 years, inflating parkland values 40% with no external appraisal, recognizing phantom revenue from unsigned leases. All to qualify for bigger loans and bigger bonuses. The worst part, a $25 million trench in Theta matured next Tuesday. They didn't need the $40 million for upgrades. They needed it to pay off Theta before default triggered cross-default clauses and bankruptcy. Why remove me now? Regulation required full disclosure of related party transactions. My presence as beneficiary and guarantor would have forced an audit exposing Theta. They voted me out to avoid scrutiny. I wasn't a burden. I was the witness they needed to silence. I leaned back, cynicism breathtaking. They publicly humiliated me just to keep their Ponzi scheme alive one more quarter. Monday morning, the boardroom tasted of stale coffee and desperation. Same 15 chairs. Same mahogany table. But the atmosphere had shifted. On Friday, I was the accused. Today, they were the ones under mortar fire. I walked in at 8 o'clock exactly, flanked by Marianne and 2 forensic auditors. I didn't sit. I placed my portfolio on the credenza. Karen looked 10 years older, hands clasped, knuckles white. Derek twitched. Bob paced. Lisa sat silently, hands in lap. Ava, Karen rasped. Thank you for coming. We've reflected. We're prepared to offer resolution. Derek slid a single-page reinstatement letter across the table. Full membership restored retroactive. Stipends back. In exchange, sign waiver releasing the bank hold and authorizing the wire. I picked it up, looked at it, tore it in half. The rip echoed. Trust isn't something you buy back with a signature. You voted me out because I was a liability. You can't vote me back because you realized I was the bank. Karen demanded, then what do you want? Safety. For the community, for the residents, and for my capital. Marianne distributed the term sheet. Independent forensic audit. Immediate moratorium on all new projects. Resignation of the treasurer for cause. Karen's face turned crimson. Resignation of the treasurer? You're out of your mind. Derek stood. You can't demand that. I'm a board member. You're a fraud, I said calmly. And I'm not underwriting your fiction anymore. Karen slammed the table. You're trying to decapitate this community. I'm trying to keep you out of federal prison. I slid the stack of emails Lisa had secretly given me over the weekend. Derek's instructions to inflate valuations, hide Theta debt, the pre-written press release blaming former beneficiary Ava Sinclair for the collapse. The independent directors read. Faces grayed. Lisa stood. It's true. I saw the original reports. Derek made me sign altered minutes. He said if I didn't, the stock would crash and it would be my fault. Tears streamed. We've been broke. We've been hiding it for 2 years. The room went deadly silent. Karen looked at Derek, then at me. Realization hit. She had bet everything on the treasurer who told her what she wanted to hear and exiled the one resident who tried to tell the truth. Is it true? Karen whispered to Derek. He slumped. I was fixing it. I just needed more time. Karen closed her eyes like a statue crumbling. The motion to remove the treasurer for cause. Seconded instantly. All in favor except Derek. Motion carried. Get out, Karen told him. And take your lawsuit with you. Derek stormed out. Bob followed. Karen looked at me, hollow. What happens now? I placed a new term sheet in front of her. Now we run a real HOA sign it. The silence after Derek's exit rang like the vacuum after an explosion. Karen stared at the term sheet, ink still wet on her signature. She looked up at me, searching for the neighbor who used to bring coffee to block parties. She found the managing partner of Northwell Bridge Partners instead. You have the signature, she said hollowly. Is it done? The rescue is active, I replied. But governance is just beginning. We're not patching holes. We're changing the captain's orders. I walked to the projector. The auditor connected his laptop. A new slide, risk assessment map. The ecosystem is leveraged at 8:1. Industry standard 3:1. If we proceed with any new projects, we breach covenants within 90 days. Banks call loans. Liquidation. The end. Bob argued weakly from the corner, we need growth. If we stop, the market forgets us. The market remembers solvency, I corrected. Right now you're driving a Ferrari toward a cliff because you like the engine sound. I'm taking away the keys. I announced the capital package. $15 million immediate liquidity, ring-fenced strictly for operations and payroll protection. Not 1 cent for new projects or bonuses. Karen whispered, you're turning a premium community into a property management company. You're killing the dream. I'm saving the reality. And I'm not asking permission. Karen tried one last rally. This is still a democracy of shares. The Whitaker block holds 51%. We can accept the money and still vote to pursue projects. He moved to accept funding but reject the moratorium. Nay, said the first independent. Nay, nay, Lisa, nay. That's a tie, Karen snarled. As president, I hold the tiebreaker. Motion carries. We take the money and we build. I smiled with profound pity. You're mistaken, Karen. You're assuming the Whitaker block still holds majority voting power. I pulled the final document, timestamped Sunday, 5 p.m. You're forgetting the Series B preferred stock agreement. In the event of a liquidity crisis lasting more than 3 business days, Class B shares convert automatically to voting shares. The crisis began Thursday. Clock ran out yesterday. As of this morning, the institutional investors and pension funds now have votes. And since I represent the rescue capital, they assigned their proxies to me. I walked to the head of the table. I control 60% of the voting rights in this room. Karen slumped. The fight drained out. I'm blocking every new project, I stated. And I am submitting a new motion, restructure governance. 1. Permanent risk committee with veto power, chaired by my appointee. 2. Immediate search for external treasurer with no family ties. 3. Bylaw amendment. No family member draws salary unless holding board-approved role with KPIs. 4. President role becomes non-executive. Title only. No day-to-day control. The independents and Lisa voted yes instantly. Even Bob raised his hand slowly. Motion carried unanimously. The coup was complete. Auditors packed laptops. Lawyers shuffled papers. Karen sat, a queen without a kingdom. Diane had been listening at the door. She walked in, took my hand. You did it. You saved us. I saved the community, I corrected. Come back, she begged. Tear up the amendment. Vote you back in. You run it now. You're the head of the neighborhood. Come back to Sunday barbecues. Well, listen now. We promise. Karen looked up, flicker of hope. Yes. Come back, Ava. Take your place. I looked at the family that had voted to cut me off 72 hours earlier. They were inviting me back not because they loved me, but because I had won. They respected power. I gently pulled my hand away. No, because you're only asking me back because I proved I have value. Because I have the money and the votes. If I had walked in today with nothing but feelings, you would have escorted me out by security. Diane recoiled. That isn't true. It is. And I do not want to be part of a neighborhood where love is conditional on a credit rating. I looked at the torn reinstatement letters still on the table. Keep the amendment. I do not want to be a beneficiary. I do not want the privileges. But you're still my neighbors. I am Avis Sinclair. I'm a counterparty. I am a lender. I'm a shareholder. And for now on, that is all I am. I picked up my bag. I'll see you at the quarterly review. Make sure the reports are accurate. My auditors will be watching. I turned toward the door. Karen shouted one last desperate attempt. If you walk out that door, you're walking out on this community forever. I stopped, hand on the brass handle. I thought about the cold room on Friday. The 15 hands raised against me. The gaslighting texts. The freedom of the weekend where I built an empire while they slept. I turned back one last time. I didn't walk out on the community, Karen. You voted me out. I'm just honoring the result. I opened the door and stepped into the hallway. The air smelled of ozone and polished stone instead of fear. Sarah, the receptionist, was on the phone, stressed. When she saw me, she paused. MS. Sinclair, I just got an email about the wage protection fund. Was that you? Yes, Sarah. It was. Her eyes filled with tears. Thank you. My husband just got laid off. I didn't know how we'd pay the mortgage. You saved us. I smiled, the only validation I needed. Get back to work, Sarah. Your job is safe. I walked to the elevator and pressed the button. I was leaving the building, but I wasn't leaving in defeat. I was leaving with my head high, conscience clear, portfolio protected. They thought they had lost a neighbor. They hadn't. They had lost the scapegoat they needed to carry their sins. And as the elevator doors closed, I realized the most important truth of all. They had voted to remove the burden, and I had finally let it drop.